Courtyard by Marriott presents CNBC-TV18 Disruptors.
As the name suggests, in this series, we showcase companies that have changed the game in their respective market segments. Brands that are truly indispensable to the everyday lives of today's millennials. In this specific episode, we throw the spotlight onto a company that revolutionized the fashion accessories market in the luxury segment. A brand that makes leather products not just for customers in India, but bags, belts and shoes for millions worldwide. And we've traveled all the way to Puducherry to bring you the untold story of Hidesign. Nearly 40 years ago, after securing a doctorate in international affairs from the University of Denver, a young Indian decided it was time to return to his childhood home in Puducherry. As a hobby, he then began crafting exquisite leather bags out of a little workshop in the Auroville ashram, and thus was born one of India's premium leather accessories brands, Hidesign. This accidental entrepreneur, Dilip Kapur, initially made handcrafted leather bags for men and sold them across small boutiques in San Francisco and London. It was not until 1998 that Dilip realized he could make in India for the Indian consumer itself, thereby launching Hidesign's first exclusive Indian boutique. Today, the company has grown to 84 exclusive stores, and through its distribution network across 23 countries, Hidesign products are available in over 2,000 stores across the globe. On this episode of CNBC-TV18's Disruptors, we decode the success story of Hidesign. We're in conversation with the man who made luxury accessories fashionable here in the country and a shining beacon of the Make in India campaign. Mr. Dilip Kapur, welcome to CNBC-TV18's Disruptors, and thank you so much for joining us on the show. We are in the heart of where it all began, here at the Puducherry manufacturing facility of Hidesign. Talk to us really about what gave birth to the brand.
Well, when I came back from America, I had a PhD in international affairs, and which was pretty useless for this, as you can imagine. I came back for Auroville, but I was getting a little bored there. And so I started with just me and one other person. And I liked working with my hands. It was nice, the idea of creating something out of it. It was almost like creating a piece of art. You know, it was my way of being artistic, I guess. Mm-hmm. But then people started buying those things that I made, sure, which was quite a surprise. Mm-hmm. And it's kept growing, and pretty much all international. And suddenly we had 200-300 people.
Sure.
And so we got a little scared and said, oh, where are we going to put them all? And around 86, 87, mm-hmm, we started thinking of, okay, what type of place do we want? Do we want one of those asbestos factories, normal factories? And I said, no way. I mean, I didn't come back.
This is a far cry from that.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't come all the way back from America to be in an asbestos factory. And I didn't want to be in an office because I was actually making the bag myself also. So then I talked to my friend Ray, mm-hmm, who is an architect, but a rebel from the late 60s and great ceramic artist. So he actually took the earth from here, baked it, and all the bricks that you see around here were from the earth here that he himself baked. And then he created this place in 7.5 acres of beautiful land.
Sure. And one thing that you can notice as we walk around is that it's definitely not your typical factory. Especially when you look at a leather factory, you automatically think it's going to be men everywhere actually working at their stations, but it's all women here. Talk to us about whether it was a conscious move at Hidesign, and what's the kind of strength you have really, the women power here at the Puducherry facility?
Well, it's more than 90% of the people working here are women now. Mm-hmm. Started off, as you said, with men, because that's what most cobblers, leather workers are. Mm-hmm. But then, you know, we couldn't train them because they already thought they knew everything.
Sure.
And we were very clear the quality standards we wanted and how we wanted. And we weren't copying bags, we were creating bags.
Absolutely.
So then what we did is Puducherry is a very educated place. Mm-hmm. So we started hiring girls with a high school degree.
Interesting.
So every single person here is a girl with a high school degree now. Mm-hmm. And we trained them.
Absolutely. Before I go to the creative and design and process element really of that beautiful piece of accessory that one carries, talk to me about the kind of experience that you have bringing together this team here in Puducherry. Why Puducherry? And do you manufacture anywhere else outside of India? Because Make in India is huge currently with the government.
I think that's one of our strengths, is that we are so strongly related to our people here. So most of our people are here, but we have two small facilities, one in Sikkim and one in Baddi, for the east and for the north.
Sure.
But all the creativity, all the, all that happens here. And I think part of the reason is, well, I want to be in Puducherry. That is clearly the main reason.
Sure. And you keep referring to them not as employees, but as craftsmen. And that brings me to the next question, really. What is the entire process of manufacturing that goes behind it?
The main process in a great bag happens long before the stitching. People think you just cut and stitch.
Sure.
But it's not like that. I mean, if you look at the back of a bag here, for example, inside, here we have a piece of leather, which is leather board, which is made out of leather, which is supporting it. This is again supporting. So there is a lot of work happens here that is in the process of making a great bag so it stays and holds its shape.
Great.
And that's what we love. We love that part of it, the craftsmanship part of it, and we honor them for that.
The humble handbag seems to have had its origin over 500 years ago in the 16th century. Fashion historians say men used small pouches to carry around coins and flint to start fires way back in the 16th century, attached to their belts or girdles. Around the same time, women carried purses with chains that could hook on to small utensils and sewing gear. But it was only in early 19th century that handbags evolved to take their current fashion accessory status. France, Germany, Italy and England revolutionized the modern-day handbag by playing around with design, sewing technique, fabric and utility. Today, there is no looking back. The handbag is an indispensable part of one's attire and is a multi-billion-dollar global industry. Absolutely. But you know what, Dilip, Hidesign is a very niche brand. It is a luxury brand of sorts. And did it ever cross your mind that maybe the volumes game is something that you should try out? Have you ever tried getting the mass consumer on board? Or would you, prefer being that exclusivity element that is so special to Hidesign?
I think exclusivity has been at the heart of what we do. We don't want a product that's massive.
Absolutely.
We're not really looking for that at all.
That's not
and I think the minute you do that, then you lose all the stories that you're talking about the craftsmanship, which is very critical to us. Then we would do only line manufacture. We would not do all this careful construction before we glue the whole bag together before you stitch it.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of work involved. So you'd have to give all that up. You can't give that up. So you can't make it cheaper if you're going to have a great raw materials. We use only solid brass. We don't use the metal just colored. We use solid brass. So how can you do that and not be exclusive?
Sure.
And if by its nature it's exclusive because most people wouldn't care. Most people would want a product which is a copy of what Gucci is doing, a copy of what Dior is doing. And we don't copy.
Now, if I were to ask you that, what exactly is a challenge for manufacturing in the country, a lot of our viewers are looking at what made Hidesign a brand, and you're a significant success story of local manufacturing, of providing for jobs in the country. Were there any challenges along this journey, Dilip, at all?
I think there are a lot of challenges, obviously. I mean, infrastructure is one of them. But the single biggest reason why Hidesign has survived would be the fact that it wasn't making for someone else.
Sure.
So if I was just making for, let's say, I don't know, some brand abroad, the minute they got it cheaper somewhere else, they would just dump you and go off.
Absolutely.
So we've never been that. We've always made for ourselves. But in terms of make it, I don't know. I mean, I think infrastructure would be one of the major issues. When I set up this factory, I didn't even have a telephone here for 2 years.
Wow.
I mean, that's the type of problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And initially you did mention that it was not really for the Indian customer. It was more overseas. Talk to us really about the kind of, journey you've had geographically in terms of presence for retail.
When I came back from the United States, when you're making something original, you can only design something that reflects the lifestyle that you understand.
Absolutely.
And I'd lived there from the age of 15 to 30 when I came back. So I only understood that lifestyle that went through the late 60s, 70s in America, which was a total rebellion. So I was rebelling against everything plasticky, everything shiny, everything flat. So I wanted something very natural, very crafted, very, with my hands I wanted to make it.
Yeah.
So all that was important to me. So I could only create something that made sense for a very Western, very American, very European lifestyle at that time.
Sure.
So our first bags sold in really alternative stores across the world. They sold in Castro Street in San Francisco or in London, I think in India everybody would look at my bags and say, oh, it looks so, why is it not shiny? Why is it not,
It was not
smooth?
Yeah.
They thought we were a little strange.
And when did you realize that the Indian customer was actually changing and evolving in terms of taste? And when did you decide to focus on the domestic market as well?
I think 2000 was a turning point. That's when we first started in India. At that point, 92% of our turnover was all abroad.
Sure, interesting. Wow.
Yeah. So it was in 2000 we said, okay, we're going to start working in India. We made our first store. And when we made our first store, that was the first time we were directly in touch with the consumer anywhere in the world.
Wow.
And that was a turning point. That we just fell in love with that. We fell in love with the fact that we could directly communicate, talk, understand, get feedback, relate back, and tell them our stories.
Absolutely. Now you have to tell our viewers another story, because it's a very competitive market that you're participating in and you're engaging in. So what sets aside a high design leather or high design leather product from one that's already available in the market?
I think that's one of the reasons why we've been successful abroad also, is that we were one of the first and we're still one of the leaders in using vegetable tanned leathers. Now, living in Oroville, you're very ecological, and most leather is tanned with chromium salts.
All right.
And that's a known carcinogenic. And no way we wanted that.
Wow.
So we went back and rediscovered India. It's the strangest thing is India was one of the 3 main places in the world where vegetable tanned leathers were known for.
Oh.
India was probably the number 1 for a long time. Hundreds of years. So we went back and discovered that, and we came back and did it. And we've been at it, since then, how to make vegetable tan leathers, how to make it better. And we realized it takes much longer to make it.
Sure.
But the product is better quality and it's great for you. If you're carrying a bag under your skin, you don't want to think that, am I going to get something, am I going to get some kind of a cancer out of it?
Absolutely.
You don't want that. So we were very conscious of that from the beginning. We were one of the leaders in that.
But before we leave the manufacturing facility, talk to me about what is the backbone of the manufacturing process for a leather industry like yourself? What exactly is?
I think we are very particular about what we do. So in that sense, we have our own tannery because we want vegetable tan. Then we make our own buckles because we want solid brass. And in the construction of it, the whole way we work was created around the idea that the craftsman would be very involved in the product. It's not an anonymous product.
Sure.
Every bag has a name on it. And if you look at it, there are only groups of 3. And most of the work is constructing the bag, making sure that the insides are strong, that they have body, that they have all that. The stitching part is what you see outside, just the stitch, is a very minor part for us. So the bag is constructed by people who are very aware that this bag is their bag. It's not that they're just one cog in a long line.
Absolutely.
That person is, she's now taking leather board. We don't use normal board because normal board doesn't expand with climate the same way as leather.
Leather does, okay.
So all those minor things matter to us.
So good to have you back here on Disruptors, powered by the Courtyard Marriott. And we're still in conversation with Dilip Kapur of Hidesign at his flagship store here in Puducherry. So Dilip, it's but obvious for me to ask you, for the benefit of our viewers, talk to us really about the product portfolio that you've developed over the last 3 decades, really.
Well, you know, when I started off, it started with those icon bags that you have there, and it was mostly men. Because as a man, it was easy for me to design for men. And I'd just come back from America. I had some very strong ideas on what type of lifestyle I liked. And it was all about travel. I mean, lots of really crazy things about travel. And then it came to work as a career. That was interesting. Women came after that.
Sure.
So first started with that, and then came to women. So women's handbags. And finally, we've landed up in a lot of accessories, as you can see. Essential accessories. So you have a lot of shoes, because it makes sense. We understand a particular type of lifestyle, a particular type of leather.
Absolutely.
And we have a lot of expertise in that. Then we went on to things like sunglasses. Because I mean, sunglasses is interesting because a lot of the values that we have could be really reflected there. For example, we like natural. And sunglasses are mostly made of plastic. But you can use acetate, which is made out of wood, and it's hand polished, and it makes beautiful sunglasses. So we moved on to those accessories like that: pens, sunglasses, belts, of course, and women's handbags and men's.
Fabulous. So you started with men's, but would it be fair to say now it's the women's merchandise that actually occupies larger amount of market share?
Depends on the country.
Oh, nice.
Internationally, we're still more men than women.
Oh, all right.
And in India, it's around 60-40, 60% women, 40% men. But we're still very strong with men's also.
Absolutely. But Dilip, luxury will come with a price tag. And the Indian market is fairly price sensitive in that sense. So how do you balance both, and what goes through your mind when you talk about the pricing of various products? Give us a range across the product line.
Well, I mean, you can see our prices are, well, there's quite a range there. So there is an entry level, you can buy an entry level handbag around 4,500, and it goes all the way up to 35,000, where you have, you know, special things like, you know, farm deer and ostrich and things like that. Are we expensive? I think it's more, it's relative. Of course, it's relative. I think in the international market, we are viewed as being largely moderate, not inexpensive. Certainly, we wouldn't be found in a Walmart or something. We are you know, you'd find us in exclusive stores.
Absolutely.
But leather by itself, by definition, is an exclusive product. So it does need a special craftsmanship, special work, special thing. And that's where the exclusivity comes in. More than even the price, I would say, is the way it's made, the way people view it. It's not a product that you take and throw.
So how do you stay relevant then? You've mentioned changing lifestyles, but over the last 3.5, 4 decades, really, you're talking about catering to that niche market of, you know, Indians who can afford your kind of products. So talk to me about how you've managed to stay relevant through the last 3.5 decades.
Well, you know, the people we're reflecting, they're very exciting people. I think the Indian upper class, or even the international, the way we work, they're the travelers, they're the people who change, they're the people who are part of the modern economy of the world. And increasingly, they're becoming more and more similar. I mean, a person sitting in, you know, in New Delhi is not that different, my customer, than from one in London or San Francisco.
True.
You know, they're fairly similar. And, you know, but travel makes it exciting. I think travel and careers, two things that really bind most of our things together, whether it was the icon bags or whether it is something as crazy as the Maasai collection, you know. I mean, what does it have in common? It's travel. That when I traveled, I was very inspired by the Maasai tribes.
Interesting.
You know, and that created this whole thing, which is completely unique, of course.
Absolutely.
But it's been, you know, all over the world, wherever we send these bags, they've been among the most successful bags we've ever had.
The Maasai tribe is said to have originated in North Africa and today inhabits strategic territory along game parks of Kenya and Tanzania. The Maasai are said to be one of the world's greatest warrior cultures. Their distinctive tradition, style of living and dressing have made them one of East Africa's most popular tourist attractions. And what's the kind of revenue mix that you have from your you know, local and international markets, if I may?
So it's around 20-25% of our product goes international.
Okay.
And it then gets retailed at very different rates. I mean,
Absolutely.
Its prices internationally would be around 2 to 3 times what the Indian prices are.
Interesting. And where do you see this going in the next couple of years? Do you think the product mix, revenue mix will be the same across India and the rest of the world? Or do you see India market, India sales picking up, or would you like to focus on overseas markets now? What's the strategy of sorts?
I think there is a reason why we like to balance the two. And that's because what we learn by working across the world makes us more exciting also for India. So I think one of the things we really enjoyed was airports.
Absolutely.
Now we have like 30 airport stores in India. I think the next things we want to see is Hidesign going into the major airports across the world so that it becomes an international brand.
Absolutely.
That's the fastest way we see how one becomes an international brand, that and e-commerce.
But you mentioned e-commerce. Talk to us. We are at a flagship store, but how much of your sales, is via portals online?
Well, it's shockingly growing very fast. I mean, incredibly fast. And there are months when we're like, I think the highest peak was around 28% of our turnover, and 1 month came out of that.
Interesting.
So it's around 20 to 25% is normal, and the growth rate there is 3 times higher than elsewhere. So we are growing very fast. And certain markets like the United States, e-commerce accounts for 80% of our turnover now.
But if I may ask you on a personal note, Dilip, what kind of inspires you or fuels your passion to wake up every morning after 35, 40 years and say, you know what, it's another brand new beginning at Hidesign?
The values don't change. That's what's important. And since you're original and you're always trying to be original, new ideas keep bouncing off your head, and then you keep trying to see, is that relevant to the people that you're talking to? And that's what through the way you talk to your customers through TV, I talk to mine through my product.
Absolutely.
So that's how we stay relevant, is that, keeping the values the same, because the customer still thinks of us the same, that we're natural, that we're ecological, that we're always innovative and, coming up with new things. So, constantly, every day, if there's new ideas keep pinging into your heads.
That's great. Do you have a target then, say for the next 3-4 years? Where are you currently in terms of valuation of a company, and where do you see yourselves growing? What is the target that you've set in mind internally?
I think first of all, we don't have a pathway to like either private equity or an IPO.
Absolutely.
We don't. We're probably, 3 years down the road, you'll still be asking me the question, and I'll still be private.
Because a lot of investors want to get on board.
Well, unless it makes sense for the brand, there's no point in it for us. So therefore, we're most likely going to stay private. Revenues are growing at around 20% a year. Last year was down to 15. This year is around 28%. So it just keeps growing, but around, I would say, not less than 20%. So if you're sitting at around 200 crores now, so you can extrapolate and that where we'll most likely be.
Absolutely. Now, if I were to pick your brains just a little bit, what would you think has been, a key hurdle or challenge in the past, or what do you think is currently a hurdle or challenge, and what really do you do to kind of overcome an obstacle?
I think to stay, you use the word relevant, and I think that's a very key word. How do you stay relevant? And I think there comes a certain time when you realize that you yourself are often a big headache, to the company. I didn't even use hurdle, I said headache.
Headache.
Yeah.
I noticed that.
And I think, you have to learn to get out of the way also of people and let them do interesting things and exciting things. And I think the next few years are very critical that we enlarge the scope and open up the company and not block it. I think there are blockages that need to be unblocked so that so new ideas can grow out, and we can grow. And the biggest single problem is probably how you run a company. That's probably the biggest one. It's not the product or the marketing.
Fantastic. Before I let you go, Dilip, what our viewers would love to know is the milestone moment or moments of sorts at Hidesign. What really woke you up and made you realize that this is not just a baby, it's a brand, and it's a disruptor of sorts that I've created?
Don't forget, I started off as a hobby. And I came back to stay in Oroville and to create this very idealistic vision of a world. And suddenly I realized I had around 200 people sitting around in 3 or 4 different homes, making all these bags. And I said, oh my God, what have I done to myself? It's no longer a hobby, it's become serious. You can't get rid of all these people and you're stuck with them and you're stuck. So there have been 2 or 3 times in my life when I realized, oh my God, I'm stuck. There's always this tension between your idealistic self and your business self, and how do you combine the two? And so I think that was the first one, when I suddenly realized, oh my God, I'm stuck. That was a big one. And the second one, the biggest milestone, would be when we, at the end of the 90s, around 2000, let's say, we were 92%, we were abroad. I had nothing in India. I was just living in India, but I had, everything I was doing was for the international market. And we were one of the very few that weren't producing for other brands. We were producing for ourselves, for our own brand. All around, we had this huge India, and we weren't doing anything with it. And when we opened our first shop, and that was a shock. I mean, that was in Bangalore.
And there's been no looking back since domestic market.
It's been a hugely exciting thing, because we moved from going indirectly to a consumer through a distributor to directly talking to the Indian consumer.
Fantastic, Dilip. All the best to Team Hidesign, and may this progress continue over not just years, but decades to come. But with this, it's an absolute wrap on this episode of The Disruptors. You can watch the show on CNBC-TV18.com and across our social media pages as well. From the entire team that put together, goodbye, thanks for watching, and do tune in again next week.
Courtyard by Marriott presents CNBC-TV18 Disruptors.